It's important to steward those dreams, because if we're not stewarding those dreams and writing them down and keeping them around to like interpret or have someone else interpret, if you can't interpret those dreams, or even to ask God what he's trying to tell you. And so God will use that to speak into your life and to speak into others' lives, also give warnings. Hey ladies, welcome to Speak Life Project with Lex. I'm so excited that you stopped in, and I can't wait to just dive right into the topic. So today we're going to be talking about the gift of discernment and discernment in general. And maybe you don't even know what that word is, so we're just going to talk about it more. And I want to say, as women, as most women, I feel like we all have some sort of discernment, level of discernment. And I really think it's because, those motherly instincts, whether we're a physical mom or a spiritual mom, whatever you may be, we have that in us, that God put in us, because as women, we're naturally protective over the younger ones. We're the gatekeeper of our home. There's so many aspects in that. And so there's that discernment, but then there's a gift of discernment. And the gift of discernment is even more in depth than just like a basic line of discernment. And I'm just making up terms here because I don't even know if there's a such thing as a basic discernment, but I'm just trying to like get the picture painted into your mind. And so I would say that I have a deeper discernment, and I didn't really know what that meant always, but I knew that I can tell when something was going to happen before it did. I can see a motive in a person that nobody else can see. And I thought that everyone else just saw that way until actually maybe 4 years ago, I realized that it was a gift. And so there would be times when, especially with my husband, there's so many times I was like, Lance, don't trust this person, or that person has a motive. I'm telling you, they're just trying to use you for this specific thing, blah, 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 blah. And long story short, he wouldn't listen to me. And then it ended up those very people that I saw those things with end up burning him. And I'm like, it took everything within me to not say, I told you so. And so I wouldn't say it out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, I told you so. Like, I really tried to warn you. And the gift of discernment is used for that. It's a lot of times used for warnings for yourself or for others, and also for you to really intercede for that person. And another example of that is okay, so there's a person. So one thing for myself personally was I dealt with a lot of Jezebel spirits. And a Jezebel spirit, if you look up in the Bible, it's a spirit where typically it could be in a man or a woman. It's not just women, but the ones that I've dealt with actually was both a man and a woman. But they tend to have a seductive spirit, a spirit of control, manipulation, where those people around you, you don't even realize you're being sucked in, but you're slowly being sucked into their plan. A lot of them rise to the top fast. A lot of them are hard workers, so it's hard to tell right away. But the spirit of Jezebel is like a false prophet. Like the spirit of Jezebel is meant to take the voice of a prophet. And it's just, if you want to learn more about it, you can read it in the word. And I think it's around First Kings. Anyways, I've dealt with that spirit a lot. And I think that's when I really learned how to develop the gift of discernment. But there was times when I knew in my spirit, in my gut, I'm like, something's not right. And one of the people that I dealt with that operate in the spirit, she was my best friend. So I didn't know at that time. I kind of ignored the signs, but slow by slow, I would see things around me that started to line up. And one day it just hit me, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what this person is operating in. And I had no idea. And when I was around that person, I did feel like my voice was always trying to be silenced. I felt like a pit in my throat. Like, these are some physical things. And then in the supernatural, I always felt tired and weary. And come to find out from more seasoned people is that when you're around that spirit, it does that to you. And a lot of times you don't recognize it. And so I'm just telling someone out there, maybe you need to hear that, but some of those signs are, if you're around someone that operates in that, it will set you free, because you don't want to stay with that. You don't want to stay around that spirit. But long story short, with the gift of discernment, it was really developed around that time. There were times that I had to speak up because I actually would physically see something in the spiritual realm. So I thought it was there, but it was like a vision that the Lord was showing me. And so I started to see that in people that had red flags, I would actually see in the spirit, I would see that they had motives. And I would always feel like the Holy Spirit was like, I want you to speak up and say something about it. And I'm like, no, because I grew up where, that saying was snitchers get snitchers get stitches. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I grew up where you don't snitch and you don't tell on anybody. And whenever there was like sin in the camp or something, and I'm talking about a time that I was like an intern and there was sin in the camp, literally it would always manifest in front of me, meaning like they would never do that specific thing in front of anybody else, but they would do it in front of me. I would end up catching it. And I'm like, why does this keep happening? And I was supposed to speak up, but I wouldn't, because I'm like, I'm not going to be that person. So one day, a person actually came to me with a situation that arose, and they're like, what happened? Tell me what happened. And the Holy Spirit was like, tell them. So I did. I ended up being hated amongst all the interns and all the things. And I felt awful. And I'm like, this is exactly why I didn't want to say anything. But the Lord was really trying to show me that when you have that gift of discernment, it's meant to be used as a warning to speak up about something. Or a lot of times it's used to, like I said in the beginning, to pray for that person. So now I'm at the season in my life where I'm like, okay, God, do I pray for this? I see this red flag. And one thing that I'm still walking out to this day is that I have to learn how to separate the spirit from the person, because with the gift of discernment, you can discern spirits in operation. So you're like, do you not see that this person has a spirit of blah and they're trying to use you and they're moochers and, things like that. And even with my husband, I'll throw him into the example and he's like, no, I think that you're just being critical. And a lot of times I thought I was just being critical, but it wasn't criticism. It was me seeing those things and not knowing what that gift was. And so I'm learning still to this day to learn how to separate the person from the spirit, because if I know that someone has a motive and they're around anyone that I love, a friend, a family member, it's so hard for me to not want to just push them away and cut them off. But sometimes the Lord's like, you're on assignment to help that person, or you're on assignment to intercede and pray for that person, because now you see what they're driven by, or you see what's in operation. So I want you to pray. And a lot of times I want to talk about it. Like I want to say, oh my gosh, do you not see that person? And some people can see into the spiritual realm and see something that's in operation, but then they use it to slander that person. And God doesn't want that either. He never wants us to tear apart somebody, especially publicly. And so it's really been just a lot of trial and error, but I'm like, okay, so God, I know that they're literally have a motive to try to hurt this person, and you want me to not say anything. And, or you don't want me, you want me to be friends with that person still. And it's literally been so hard. And my husband knows, and I'm just like, babe, how can I be that person's friend when I know that this is an operation? And I can't say that it's easy, but I'm definitely being obedient to what God is saying when he tells me to do that. And sometimes the person that is in operation with something will eventually, as we create that relationship, open up and say, hey, what do you think about this, and that? And then it gives me an opportunity to bring up the thing that I see that's in operation. And then it's up to the person to either take it and to heal and to get free in that, or they can run and cut me off. And I've had both. There was times that I had really close friends and they were operating in something that was not of God. And I thought that we had a long relationship. It was like 8 years. And I thought because we were friends that I was able to tell them what I saw. And so I even approached them, and literally, I'm not even kidding, it literally flipped on me. And we, from that day forward, have not talked or been friends because I said what I saw. And so in that, sometimes the truth hurts with that too, but you really have to be led. If you do feel like you resonate with this gift, you have to be led on what God wants you to do with it, because it can get messy. It can cut people off, and it can, if not used well, it can be used to slander somebody, because you can see in the spiritual realm. And so it's been a challenge learning not to cut people off because of the spirit that I see in operation or the motives that they have. But it can be done, and it's important to go in the word and read more about what God says about the gift of discernment and discerning of spirits and praying for one another and interceding And another way that you can discern or receive warnings about your life or somebody else's life is in dreams. And I like to talk about these things more in depth in the future, but I'm just kind of like giving like a broad view. But there's dreams, like people get dreams in the night. And my husband laughs at me because sometimes I'm like, I had this dream and I'm explaining it to him. And he's like, that was just a pizza dream. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. I'm like, that I know that that means something. And we just joke around. But I always encourage people that do dream a lot, because you're not just dreaming for no reason. You're dreaming a lot of times because God is trying to tell you something. And sometimes the only times he can get to us, because we're not slowing down or we're always going and we're not taking the time to quiet ourselves, a lot of times he'll use the time when you're sleeping to speak to you. And so I have dreams, and there was a season where I didn't have dreams, and it's because I shut it down. There was a time where I was probably in sin and something, and it was just shut down. And I remember asking God, I'm like, God, I want to dream again, because as his children, like, I think it's great to dream. And I like to dream or dreams can be it can come in different shapes and forms, meaning like there's dreams of warning, then there's dreams that are like blessings and like joyful, then there's nightmares. If it's nightmares, then that's not of God, because nightmares are meant to like instill fear, and the enemy can put that in you too while you sleep. But I'm not talking about nightmares. I'm talking about dreams of warning and just things to come and things that the Lord is wanting to put on your heart. And so in that area, I started to get a journal or even my phone. And sometimes I would talk my dreams into the mic. I stopped doing that because one time I did a recording and I didn't understand a word that I said. Last time I was like, I sounded like a man. My voice was deep and crackly. I'm like, I won't do that again. So I'll either try to write it out while I am telling my husband, or do the word text where I speak it out and it writes out the text for me. And then I know other people like to physically write, but I'm like, I don't got time for that a lot of times because my kids are jumping on me or something, or you know how it is. And so it's important to steward those dreams, because if we're not stewarding those dreams and writing them down and keeping them around to like interpret or have someone else interpret, if you can't interpret those dreams or even to ask God what he's trying to tell you, then what's the point of dreaming or getting more dreams if you're not going to steward them? And I remember hearing someone say that, and I was like, man, I don't want to be that person that doesn't steward my dreams. And so I started to document them and put dates on it. And sometimes I would even remember a dream from like a year or two later, and then realize, wow, I never got an interpretation on that. And so I would interpret it, and it would mean something for the season that I was in now. And so God will use that to speak into your life and to speak into others' lives, also give warnings. I've had dreams where the Lord showed me something about a friend, and I'm like, nah, that's too crazy. I'm not going to tell them that. Or it's like something intimate or something. And sure enough, a friend that I haven't talked to in a long time, that person that I was dreaming about, they'll call me out of the blue, and I'll tell them, I'm like, I don't know if this is weird or not, but I feel like I'm supposed to tell you this. I had a dream about this, and that. It didn't make sense. I hope it resonates with you. And then all of a sudden on the other line, they're like, yes, oh my goodness, that's a warning, because we've been going through this, and that. Thank you so much for telling me. I need a confirmation. And so it's important to step out in that too, when God is showing you something about somebody else and even yourself. So it can be, the gift of discernment can be scary for some people, but it could also be something that's awesome to partner with God to use to help others out, and also yourself, because you're seeing into the spiritual realm for a reason. You're discerning what's going on for a reason, not to just know and not to just gossip about it, but to be proactive, to pray, and to give warning to yourself and to others so that you know what to do. Or maybe you could save a life that way. Or maybe you can even help someone in their path that they threw something out to God, like, Lord, I need to know this. Or if you really love me, you'll do this. And because you're discerning an environment, like there's so many things that we could talk about, and I'll talk more about it in the future, because you could discern things in an environment. You could discern words. You could discern an atmosphere. You can discern like smells. I was just telling someone earlier that like I have smelt spirits before, and I knew that something was in operation, because there was this one time we were on a crusade. I think it was like in somewhere in Texas or something. And it was right before the pastor and everyone was coming into this. It wasn't even a sanctuary. I think it was like a hotel room or something, whatever they call it, conference room. And we were there the night before, and I even think the day prior, and we didn't smell the smell, and it was the same area. And so right when we walked in, Lance and I was like, what is that smell? And it literally smelled like death. It was like a sewer, and it was so disgusting. And some people didn't smell it and others did. And so I'm like, yo, this is so weird. Then a little bit later into that service, they started to do deliverance, and sure enough, the smell went away. And we were like, oh my gosh, we were smelling spirits. We were smelling stuff that knew that it was about to be their time to go. And it was like in the air and we could smell it. So I thought that was cool. And I know that there's other things that people smell and see and feel. And, you know, some people feel angels. Some people see in the spiritual realm and can see angels and demons. I've seen demons before. I haven't really seen angels, but I felt the presence of angels. I know that there's people that said they've seen gold dust, you know, stuff like that. And I used to knock all those things. I used to be like, nah, you're off your rocker, you're crazy. But I think I had a weirdness about it because people would put more emphasis on the supernatural or on the signs and wonders instead of emphasis on God. But now I have seen, or not personally, but I've heard people see feathers and gold dust and stuff like that, that I trust that they're not lying. And so I'm like, I'm not going to knock that. Like, God really could do anything. And I've even heard people say that they've seen jewels, like come in front of them and stuff, or they'd wake up and see those things. And I'm like, that would be really awesome to see. And I'm not going to knock it. That would really be great to see, but I haven't seen it. And if I do one day, that'd be really awesome and cool in my lifetime to see that. But I'm sure in heaven we'll see that and then some. And so I really think that some people can get weird with it too, I think is why it has a bad rap, because there's some crazies out there, but we'll just kind of disregard the crazies and say, you know what, God could do whatever he wants to do. He can manifest and show his glory in any way that he wants to. And we shouldn't knock those things because we don't know. Just because we didn't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not true and it doesn't happen. And so if you have seen those things, that's awesome. I know that I want to see angels, not only feel them, but I want to see them. And I know that I heard one of this prophetess say one time, she was like, she's a seer. And she's like, if you can see demons, then you're only seeing one side of the spectrum. She's like, you can see angels as well. And so she's like, you just have to kind of like exercise that and work towards that. And I'm like, yes, please. And so for me in this year, I really want to try to work on that. Like, to say, okay, I don't want to only see the dark side. I want to see the light as well. So I don't know why I went down that whole road about dreams and stuff. I just wanted to talk about discernment, but I think that is fun to talk about, and I want to dive more into it into the future. And I hope that if you do have the gift of discernment or dreams or you can see into the spiritual realm, that this encourage you to keep going, to not think that you're weird, because a lot of times there's this lady, her name is Jennifer Evas. I like to see a lot of her stuff. Kevin Zadai, they talk about the supernatural. I know that Kevin Zadai, he went to heaven before. And so he talks about those things. He can see angels and different things. He can see into the spiritual realm. There's another lady I listen to. Her name is Anna Warner, and she sees angels as well, and she can see into the spiritual realm. And so I like to listen to these people because I'm like, if I have that gift of discernment and seeing, I want to be able to develop that gift and not leave it because I don't understand. Because a lot of times, if we don't understand something, we just leave it. And I'm like, no, I want to discover more about that gifting that God's given me so I can utilize it and use it and not be afraid. And so I want to encourage you in that if you do have that gift, don't be afraid of it. People may think that you're weird or crazy or critical, but you know what it is. And maybe this helped to shed light on it. But like I said, we'll talk more about it in the future and dive right into the spiritual realm. I love talking about topics like that, so I wouldn't mind. But I hope that you have a great day, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. Remember to speak life always. Bye.